Hey everyone, today we're going to look at how we can use models in order to calculate the volume of a rectangular prism. Let's do some review of vocabulary. A rectangular prism is a three-dimensional rectangle. Volume is how much space is inside something or how much space is taken up by something. And a cubic unit is what we're measuring volume in. In this case, it's one of these cubes. So each of these tiny little cubes is one cubic unit. You can use your tools at home, and I'm going to show you with my Legos in my home how we can build some of these models in order to understand how we can break them apart visually to understand how many individual cubic units are in each rectangular prism. So let's first build our base layer. This whole scenario on your assigned page today involves this same base layer. I can count to see how many cubic units are in my base layer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 cubic units in this base layer. So I've used these large Lego blocks to construct this base layer. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these cubes. This is my base layer. Can turn it sideways so that it sort of looks like the picture. All right, so the volume of my base layer is 8 cubes, and I've built a base layer of 8 cubes. Now let's figure out the volume of this second scenario where there are 2 layers. Remember, if each layer is made up of 8 cubes, because it's telling us that there are 4 cubes going one way, and there are 2 rows of those 4 cubes, I'm going to build a second identical layer. I'm just building up in order to figure out the volume of 2 layers. So let me go ahead and add to my base layer with a second layer. That means I need 1 cube on top of each cube in my base layer. All right, so now I have 2 layers of these cubes, and each layer is 8 cubes. I can take my rectangular prism apart in order to figure out what the volume is, how many cubic units are in this rectangular prism. So let's go ahead and take it apart. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Now you should be able to build some of these rectangular prisms at home with the cubes that I sent home with you. So the volume of 2 layers of my base layer is going to be 16 cubic units. And it's just asking me for how many cubes. So there are 16 cubes in 2 layers. And we can also, I bet some of you figured out that, well, we can just multiply 8 times 2 to figure out the volume if there are 2 layers. I mean, if we know that 1 layer is 8 cubes and we're just doing 2 layers, then we can multiply 8 times 2, and you're right. So that bridges us to this formula down here. When we had just 1 layer, we had 4 cubes in a row 2 times. So 4 times 2 is our base layer, times 1 is just 8 cubic units. And we just built and then took apart our 2-layer rectangular prism. We had the same base layer, 4 times 2, 8 cubes, and then we built up a second layer, so 2 layers that are 4 times 2. So that means it's 16. And we can just keep going with this formula to figure out the volume as we keep adding layers. This exact formula is our standard volume formula. We multiply the length times the width to find the base area of our bottom layer, and then we multiply that by the height. How many layers are there? And that's exactly what we're doing on the second page for today. We are multiplying the length times the width, and then multiplying that base area, that base layer, by the height. How many of those layers are there? And here's the formula, and it's cubic feet. So instead of just cubic units, we're being given different dimensions: cubic centimeters, meters, inches, etc. Right? The only thing different here is that you're not building your rectangular prism out of individual cubes. You're being given a drawing with labeled dimensions. So that's a little bit of an added challenge here. Let's take a look at number 8. Our length is 15 centimeters. Our width is 6 centimeters. And our height is 10 centimeters. That means our formula is 15 times 6 to get our base area, and then times 10 layers, and that will give us our volume. So we would just work through some multi-digit multiplication to solve this problem and fill in our volume. Let's finish it up by doing that one together. We'll do 15 times 6, and I would highly recommend you all using some scratch paper. 6 times 5 is 30. We'll regroup the 3 to the tens place. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 3 is 9. So our base area is 90, and then we have 10 of those layers. I know that every time I multiply by 10, I'm writing on one more 0. So this would be 90 times 10 would be 900. So the volume of this rectangular prism is 900 cubic centimeters. And we'll just continue with the same formula for the rest of the problems.